right, good morning, everybody. This is Jeff Davis with Opera.
Dennis Grant with United Rehab Services.
There
good
you
morning.
go. It's us. Anita is here with us, and Christine. And, of course, Christine is guiding all of our technology to make sure this works, which is helpful.
Before we just get started, can someone tell me whether or not you can hear us? Jody, Marty, Tim, or Vanetta? Can anybody hear us? Yes, okay, perfect. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
All right, we're on.
So you're fortunate in that you won't get to see me or Dennis, but you will be able to see, right, the PowerPoint. So let's get right to it, right? We're going to talk about really the very simple, conceptually simple idea of how to build effective relationships with your elected officials. With your elected officials is not just those in the State House, as Dennis will talk about, right?
Correct.
Local as well. So let's start with some very basics, right? We'll see if I can click this to make it work.
Oh.
Back. All right. Why we do this? Because it gives you influence. It is that simple. Our system is inherently reliant on taxpayer dollars, right?
Exactly.
In one way or another. Whether it's Medicaid, county board dollars, fundraising dollars are not taxpayer dollars, but we're reliant on some other, right?
Exactly.
Gracious, right?
We're dependent upon the kindness of strangers.
We absolutely are. So that requires that we have some influence among those that have to make policy decisions. And one of the key policy decisions that elected officials make is how to allocate resource. And so we have to have influence. You do that through a statewide association. You do that individually. And so we're going to chat more about that. And truly, because it also can benefit your own agency and those you serve.
Exactly. And that's the most important part. It's about the people we serve and making sure we're preserving dollars for them and defending our share of what's going to be divided up at the state and federal level.
So I'm going to jump into some very sort of introductory basics, which you probably know. The goal here, and I think the real benefit of this morning, is going to be listening to Dennis and how he's done that. So I want to get to him as quickly as possible. But there are really some steps in how you do that. One is understanding. In this case, we'll talk about who is your legislature. This applies absolutely to, right, the local level as well. Finding out who your local officials are should not be that difficult for you.
Not at all. Go to the website. Put in your zip code.
But it's the same thing with your state legislature. With the Ohio House of Representatives, with the Ohio Senate, they both have individual websites. They are relatively simple to use to find out who your state House member is and your state senator, right? You can do that by typing in your zip code. You can do that if you sort of know where you are in district. There are any number of ways to do that. If you have any struggle, you can call me directly. We will handhold in every possible way, to find out. And then you sort of understand a little bit more about them. If you go to the House or Senate websites, for example, they'll have biographies, of each of, the reps and the senators, and they'll talk about their background. And some of that may resonate with you if you don't know them already, or you may know them, because likely they have sort of born out of, local positions. You see that as much, in some cases not. They might be a prominent business person, prominent nonprofit CEO, or they've been a county commissioner or city council member or whatever it might be, and you see that quite a bit.
Exactly.
So it's easy enough to know.
Pay a lot of attention to that, and I think it's really important that you always do your homework. As you said, you read those bios, you look at what their positions are. You've got to figure out exactly kind of what their hot buttons are. What are they passionate about? What bills have they sponsored? Who are they engaged with? But you've got to know them and build that relationship based upon that, like anything else.
That's exactly right. And you'll get, it should resonate with you. Let's, for example, when you see their bio and they were with the chamber or they were with the Rotary or they were, headed up the agricultural, whatever it is, whatever they do in agriculture. I'm not sure. We'll figure that out. Anyway, and we'll help you in every way we can, and especially if you want to step up, in the State House, you can do that, but you can do that with us. That's what we're here for. And so, we can talk through, because we'll know in one way or another, either me personally or through our lobbyists or whatever, and we'll get a sense of the legislature, individual legislators, and we can talk all through that as we go through this path.
And that's one of the greatest advantages of being associated with Opera, is because of the close ties that both Jeff as well as Mike Toman, Nick, all of our people who are up here lobbying on our behalf, we have an inside track already. And if you want to know what the hot button issues are, where you can be most helpful, what's going to impact you and your business and the people you serve the most, you can always just turn to Opera. Just make that call and make sure you stay in touch.
That's true. And, sometimes it's reciprocal, and we'll get into the substance here in a sec, but keep in mind that, Dennis, for example, and certainly others, I may not actually have the kind of relationship that is necessary with all 132 legislators, for example. Typically, we have our champions, or we develop champions, but you're always looking. And so Dennis, for example, can help set up meetings with us, with individual members that because his relationship is already there, and that relationship is solid, and then again, reciprocally, it's easy enough then to bring Opera into that conversation. Sometimes, and maybe more often, it's the reverse, where Opera starts it and we bring you in, but it works both ways, and it's essential that it works both ways. So, we'll get into that, as we go farther here. So we've got some very just generic things here for you on how your legislator thinks, but it's applicable everywhere.
Okay, try it again.
Right. Let's do it. Yeah. Right.
Right along.
Right along. So if you see this in front of us, right, this is what they generically have to think about, right, as those that are responsible for making decisions about policy, whether it's fiscal policy of the state or whether it's policy and individual issues. Right? They typically realize that things are a compromise, right? That's the nature of the game. With certain exceptions, I suppose, like some of the more egregious examples of hot button social issues. Most of the things they deal with are going to have multiple sides to them, and so they have to figure out if they're good and if they want to get things done. That's always critical, right?
Yep.
How you put multiple people in a room that might have opposing opinions or different views at the very least, and how you get them to, work out a compromise. So keep that in mind, right there. That if indeed they intend to have a presence of substance in the legislature, then they have to figure out how to get things done.
Yeah.
And that involves, solving issues where there at the very least are differing opinions, or at most there is strong controversy. Yeah.
And it's important that you do constantly reach out to these folks. And, as Jeff said, it's great that Opera is working this from their side, but we all need to do it because they need to hear multiple voices, and they need to hear the voices of the constituents from their neighborhood. And you can not only be an active individual on bills and issues that are important to the people we serve, but you can also draw other people in too. And frankly, I was amazed one time when I contacted Sherrod Brown's office and Mike Turner's and some others up in Washington, D.C., and they said, we're so glad that you contacted us because he really wants to know how people are feeling about this particular issue. And, to me, I feel like sometimes you're being annoying because I'm constantly emailing or calling, and but they really do want that feedback. And so it's important that we let them know how we feel and how the people we serve will be impacted.
That's true. And ultimately, if we do this well, individually is done well at the provider level, right, they'll be the go-to person, or they can be the go-to person for that legislator. And that's just what Dennis says. So I can go in, for example, where I have, and say, this is our issue, right? This is what we'd like to see happen. And hopefully they have some relationship with me or belief in my sincerity. But still, even with that, where there are relationships locally, they'll go back and check.
Absolutely. And we found that to be really important, that you get them out to get to know the people you serve.
Yeah.
They've got to see it firsthand. Really appreciate that sometimes, I think.
So these 5 bullets that we have here for you that you're seeing really are applicable at the State House level. They're certainly applicable at the council level. Did we move on one more, Christine? Did I do that?
I think you did.
Yeah, there you go. Well, they're still applicable either way, right? Whether it's a legislature or whatever. So if we go to the second page, how your legislator thinks, then clearly we are, right? How do the people back home feel? That's just what we talked about. Yes. So how does Dennis feel, when Peggy Lehner calls him, after she's got an issue that we've been, or the county boards or stakeholders in our systems that matter? How does that? Don't take the second bullet on this particular page in any way. People get cynical about, being reelected, and they feel that people make decisions based on being reelected, and that's where the cynicism comes in. Don't look at it that way entirely. Realize that if somebody is in this, let's assume that people are doing this for the right reason, that they want to make a difference. And I think more often than not, people start that way.
True.
And so if they want to make a difference, they have to be there. And that pressure of, if I'm not here, but I have a vision of how the city should run, or I have a vision of how Ohio should run, or this system should run, if I'm not elected, I can't help carry out that vision. And so, yes, there's personal interest. We get all that, right? But I want you to realize that election, and re-election matter. They matter. And if I'm sitting here probably in a room of Democrats, but let's assume the same thing, that I'm an elected Democrat or an elected Republican, as our system is set up today in large measure. It matters, whether our collective vision as Democrats or collective vision of Republicans matter. And you can only have those visions moving forward if you have, in this particular case, right, majorities in whatever right body that you're elected in. So keep that, I only ask you to be a little more empathetic in understanding that election and re-election matters, not just to the individual, but to policy decisions, right?
And I think that's one reason that they respond so positively if you do support them in many ways. You can help get them visibility, you can help promote them, and you can help support them financially, and they certainly appreciate that.
So you can see, it does matter too. When you think about the State House, it matters where my caucus is, matters where my leadership is on those issues. There's some things I may or may not be able to, go against leadership in my caucus at times. There are other things where I can have a strong voice and change it. It really does vary. The governor matters still, and those kinds of things. Close friends and allies. That's the whole point of relationships, isn't it? Is that I am more likely to work with those that I have a close relationship with. That is human nature. I can't see that changing as long as we're still human beings. And so the relationships are what it's all about, and that's what we're talking about here. And then we can go on down there. But you will have this ready for you, and a copy of this. And it's so very basic, but you can almost use this as a checklist when you begin to think about your stuff and how you go forward. So, how to make a difference, because I'm going to get to Dennis here in a sec, right? It's going to be him, and that is, right? First lesson, there isn't any right way. It's built on your style. There are some key concepts in how you go about it, but I would argue that you do this in ways that you're most comfortable. So I've been lobbying, I suppose, in one way or another since, 1990, maybe 89. And, at my age, after all these years, I still realize that I have my own style and I work on my own strengths. Now, you can mitigate your weaknesses, but I think you don't try and be somebody other than what you are, right?
Correct. And I think, as you said before, it's about building that relationship, making sure you've got credibility, and you want them to appreciate the fact that they can trust the information you're giving them.
Essential.
You can give them the facts.
Essential to that first piece. Unless you have one heck of a lot of money behind you, I would suggest that you be as sincere as you possibly can be, right? And they're going to have a natural inclination in our system to want to support us. That's been, I think, one of our biggest benefits, is that irrespective of party, they want to help us. They want to help us if they can.
That is true.
Right.
And I think in our situation here in Ohio, it's predominantly Republicans, and it doesn't matter what your personal political persuasion may be. What matters is you're sharing the issue, you're being objective, you're providing factual information, and explaining what the cause is and why it's so important.
Yeah, that's spot on. Okay. you're the constituent. You are. And you're the subject matter expert, as Dennis said. So the chances are they're not going to know developmental disability issues. Chances are they're not, unless they've had a personal connection or whatever it might be, right? So they're going to look to you locally. They're going to look to us. We'll do these things together, but they're going to look to you. They want to see what you do. It's surprising how quickly they will agree to come out and see you, right?
It is true, and I think a lot of people are intimidated or not confident that they'll come through. But we've not only been successful in inviting people out individually to take a tour, to spend some time getting to know what we do and who we do it for, but we've even hosted legislative breakfasts and had fairly good attendance, 9, 10, 12 people. So we can get people from throughout the area and from districts that aren't necessarily in our backyard. Steve Wilson from down in Lebanon, not our district, but somebody that I want to know what we do.
That's it. That's spot on. Now, you can do this individually, right, as a CEO or leader in your agency, or you can do it in groups, as Dennis said. And we can put, it's nice in a lot of different ways. Back to it, there's not a right way. There's just a number of ways in which you can do these things. So it's good for them to know you individually. It's good for you to work with others. There's strength in groups, strength in numbers, especially if we're all saying the same thing, right?
Yeah.
We are an emotional, and this is important too, but I'm not saying play on it because it's naturally there. Serving individuals with developmental disabilities immediately, right, moves right into an emotional side. People connect with it. They want to believe we're doing good things. They don't always necessarily care about how we do it or want to know how we do it, but they want to believe that we do it well. And so you have that, most likely you will have that sort of personal emotional connection. And so I would say use it, but you don't have to.
You don't have to overplay it because it's a natural.
It's a natural, yeah.
But I think, that's the important thing is that they understand very clearly what the implications are of the decisions they make on a particular bill or an issue.
I think that's exactly right. So personal contact, hometown connections, right? Personal contact, hometown connections make a huge difference. And that's what we're talking about today, right? So with that, here we go. There's a drum roll. All right. Now we're going to go to Dennis, and we're going to give you and Nan some chance to chat, but there it is.
Well, I've focused on really trying to reach out to every politician in the area, and this really became, I guess, much more important to me back in around 2004, 2005, when the state was in the process of eliminating the CAVS program, Community Alternative Funding System, part of Medicaid. And when waivers were coming along, because we didn't really understand what that was going to look like, what the change was going to be. And honestly, that's when I got much more deeply involved with opera and was able to kind of learn from the folks here, Maureen Corcoran, actually Director Martin at the time was very active, and they helped prepare me to get engaged with the legislature in terms of testifying before the House Finance Committee, really getting much more actively involved. And from there, it was just kind of a springboard. But I think you really need to focus on building those relationships, as Jeff said earlier, with all the people who are in the political arena locally. Even in Montgomery County, where I'm from, Sheriff Phil Plummer is now going to be in the House. And, I've had Phil come over and he's judged our chili cook-off like 8 or 9 times. He's been on our television special. He attends our annual dinners. He really understands what we do. So we've got a relationship that was developed over 15 years. We do the same thing with the mayors and with, of all our communities, whether it's Riverside or Huber Heights or, city of Dayton where I'm at. We want to make sure that they and the city council people know what we're doing and why it's important. I've been able to go down and actually speak before them when they have their meetings and talk about important issues, and even use it as a forum to promote some of the events. We do the Rubber Duck Regatta, so it's an excuse to get before them and try to sensitize them to why we're doing fundraising, because we're not getting paid enough to cover our costs, and what that can do.
Think about this locally, as Dennis said. Why, given your time and effort, why not have as many local connections as possible, not just in the assumption that they possibly may be moving up, but also, as residential providers, we can't forget the challenges of zoning that we experienced historically, right?
True.
And other things. So why not spend some time with city councils, with mayors, in the areas that you're in, doing that, and at least have one really solid relationship, in the communities you're in, preferably more, but have those relationships so that if indeed, difficult issues come up, whether or not in my backyard or whatever it might be, that they know who you are and they know what value you bring to your community.
Well, and the county commissioners are extremely important, dealing with, local county boards of developmental disability services. That's where you can really get engaged with them so that they understand your side of the story. I mean, if all they hear is from, the county board, they are only hearing half the story. And frankly, it's much, much better now than it was 10, 12 years ago, especially, where I'm from. We had a very contentious relationship back in the late 2006, 2008. It was a very tough time. And it was important that those commissioners appreciate what we are trying to accomplish and why it's so important for the county board to support local providers, how it's important to get those waiver dollars out there. But, I think you can get engaged with the, helping with the local levies. If they see you out there and you're supporting the entire system, it buys you, again, that credibility. You got to build on that and make sure they know you've got a lot of integrity in how you approach those things. But a lot of those people are going to move up. Our mayor in Dayton, Ann Whaley, was a candidate for the governorship. Right. So if Nan were to get in to be the governor, I've got a very close relationship with her that was built over many, many years. So you've got to always be thinking about who's next.
That's true.
But
I was nodding my head on the levies.
Yeah.
I know that many providers are active in different ways in support of county board levies, but unless you have, a fiscal objection or something like that, I think we would argue that you should be front and center.
Absolutely.
Supporting the county board levies.
Oh, I get on the committee. I go down and sit on the phone bank. I bring employees with me to do the same thing. We've got signs all over town. I deliver signs to my neighbors, and I think they see that and they appreciate it. And you better put their political signs in your front yard too, because as you were saying before, they want to get reelected. And if you're supportive of them in that regard, again, it certainly earns you a few points. And one of the reasons that I like being involved with those local folks, whether it's county clerk or the treasurer or whoever is running for office, I can go to their political fundraisers for $15 or $30 or $50, and other legislators are there. It gets you access for very little money. And I found that building relationships in those venues is really important. I can go to something for a local city council person, and everybody's there.
So spot on. You bet.
Yeah, it's been a great opportunity to do that, and I think that the important thing again is you make those connections and then you keep doing that. Fortunately, I've been able to build relationships with a lot of the state legislators who, when they're doing a $500 or $1,000 event, I can either A, get in for free, which is great, because I will go with a board member, I'll go with a donor, I'll be as their guest. So use your social capital, try to build that opportunity to get in there without springing for the money if you can avoid it. I probably only spend, $300-400 a year in political contributions to go to these things, because now I get phone calls from legislators inviting me to come to their event for free. And because they know what we do is so important, and they want to help us get greater access to other people, which helps you not just legislatively and with issues, but helps you with fundraising, because usually the people that are paying $500 to $1,000 are people that I want as a donor. So it's you know, it trickles across the line. But I think, as you said before, you got to get to know these people, and I think reading about what their positions are, you know, what their passions are, is really important. We use a donor database from Blackbaud, Razor's Edge, and you can basically develop a marketing file, if you will, that I use to always fall back. And, you know, my brain doesn't work quite as well as it used to. My memory's not what it was. So I better have a file that I can go back to and remember, you know, how many kids they have and where they go to school. So if I'm meeting them at a coffee or for breakfast or going to an event, I want to be able to speak to them on a very personal level. And again, it's about building that relationship where they really feel like you're a friend, a confidant, and somebody they can count on. So just like you would for a donor or anybody else, if you're in the marketing business, you know, you want to keep a record of everything. And if you go away, the person that replaces you can fall back on that too, because your agency and the people that you serve are extremely important, and we want to make sure there's continuity, whether it's you in the cat seat or not. But, you know, I think we've been very fortunate that pretty much every legislator in our area has been through for at least one or two tours. We invite legislators to come to our events. You know, we'll let them come for free if we need to, just to get them there. You know, Mike Turner, Congressman Turner, has been kind enough. He's hosted our television special twice, keeping him engaged. First time when he was mayor of Dayton. And so, again, we had that relationship from way back when he was the mayor. Now, you know, being a congressman representing our area for many, many years, it's extremely important that we still have that tie. And you don't give that up. You know, you constantly have to be looking for that. You know, one thing I think that, you know, we want to do is, again, put a face on things. I sometimes talk about the issue of, you know, with the latest, especially recently, you know, we talk about all the tax cuts that we got recently. Well, the first thing that happened is immediately they start thinking about, well, how are we going to pay for those, right? So we look at entitlements. And, of course, entitlements, immediately you're talking Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. Well, they're much more afraid of hitting Medicare and Social Security than they are Medicaid. And, you know, most of us, Medicaid is the predominant element of our budget. And we've got to protect it. So it is important that these people come out and see firsthand, put a face on what it is that we do and who it is that we serve. So when they make that final decision on a bill, they, you know, talking about cutting our budgets, you know, they really need to understand who it is it affects and how it affects them. And I think that's an emotional component you were talking about, Jeff. It's a matter of really personalizing this, that they can't just make this decision in isolation. So we try really hard to constantly explain to them what that means when they make that vote. But we have worked really hard. I've been active with the political committees from the Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the Chamber of Commerce board in Dayton, which gives me some additional access, but anybody can attend legislative days with the United Way, with the Chamber of Commerce. Go to Columbus, spend some time, visit with those legislators, and you can do it in a group, and they'll remember you when you come back as an individual with a specific issue. So always be sure that you're out there so that they can see your face. And, you know, I think the thing that we try to do also is, you know, I spend a lot of time working the media. Our development staff is really good about making sure that we are doing, if we're doing something exciting and there's something great going on with the people we serve, we want to be on the television. We want to do those radio interviews. And it takes a lot of time, and it's above and beyond what you normally do in a day. But that level of visibility translates to having them understand who you are, what you do. And then other people in the community hopefully will get on board, because it gives you a chance to have that platform. You know, be out there in front of the community, be out in front of the public. And I think it always helps that then they know that you can be the, you know, the resource. You can be the expert, if you will. That if there is an issue they're trying to decide something upon, you will get the call. That I started building my relationship with Senator Peggy Lehner long ago when she was a council person for the city of Kettering. And she contacted me about transportation issues, paratransit issues, that they were trying to address in the Kettering area. And it was from there that we really built that relationship, you know. And it seems like something small at the time, but, you know, it's worked out to be something really important.
Touch a moment on how you sort of reinforce. I mean, they need positive feedback, right? And you got the bullet here. It's helpful if not only when they reach out or when they come visit or whatever it is, that you reinforce that behavior, that positive aspect of their attending through Facebook or through whatever it is, right? That they,
oh yeah,
I mean, every time that their name is out there, certainly in a positive way. I mean, that's reinforcing to them and their mission.
Exactly. You know, and whether it's for re-election or just a positive feel or whatever, but, you know, whenever they come to visit, we're taking lots of pictures. We're posting it on our Facebook page. We're pushing it out to the media. If you can get, you know, if Congressman Turner comes to visit and spend some time with the kids or read a book to them one day, you better believe we're calling every TV station in town to get a camera out there. And they are happy to do it. And that's one of the reasons you need to build those relationships with the media, so that when you do have an event, when you do have an opportunity, it helps you and it helps the legislator to have that positive spin on, you know, they really do care about the people in their community. They really are engaged. And the more you can help them, the more they will help you. So it's always a great opportunity, I think, to just, again, take that relationship up a notch. And it's got to be reciprocal. You can't just go to them constantly. It's like a donor. You don't go to them with your hand out every time. Sometimes you got to do something for them, right? So it's a back and forth, I think, a little bit. But make sure that you get involved. And I think the important thing is, you know, be actively engaged, regularly communicate with them. And it doesn't have to be in person necessarily all the time. But make sure that you do stay in touch. And I think, and you mentioned, you know, and I talked about social capital. I see we're kind of moving through the PowerPoint here. I'm off schedule, I guess. But yeah, talk to my staff. I do this all the time. You know, it's so important that you lean on the donors, you lean on your board members to invite you to events.
Yes.
You know, Dayton, the premier event in Dayton is always the Dayton Art Institute Art Ball. And I can go there and hang out with Mike Turner and his daughters. And, you know, I can get involved with all the county commissioners. Everybody wants to be seen, right? The place to see and be seen. And get to those things. And I can't afford $300 a ticket. But if I pressure some of my donors and my board members to, hey, can we sit at your table? Get out there, because they're there. And you want to be, you know, connected to them in social situations so you can have those conversations, get to know them on a different level, because those relationships matter and they will last.
We know this is intuitive to you, but it is so important. I'll give you a recent example now. As you may know, I'm on city council down in Grove City, which is an area down here in southwestern Franklin County. And, you know, our current state representative was on city council with me, right? After I started, she came on. We're very close. She had a fundraiser here recently. The party dynamics are changing a little bit in Franklin County, which is actually going to elevate her stature a little bit. And so she had a fundraiser in the end, and they were putting money in there. The point was, you know, it's just a relatively small, right, state representative fundraiser. But Jane Timken, if you know that name, who's the chairman of the Republican Party here in Ohio, you know, was there, you know, as was congressman and different. So, and then what that does, certainly for me, is to talk about our issues in different kinds of ways. It then gets you invited in different areas. And then, of course, you know, in this case, you've got surprisingly, right, really now a continued Republican administration across the board. But all these things are right there for you, right? Maybe unexpectedly sometimes, but still right there for you when you work on this and you work on those relationships and you find yourselves in settings that you hadn't anticipated with people of real life influence that you might not have anticipated. So,
Absolutely.
it is, and it all sort of really it sort of snowballs on itself in a positive way.
It will.
As you build these relationships, and it's not without its own enjoyment. And some of these relationships become much more than professional, right? And if they get to that level, then then you really have the kind of, can't always win. Nobody always wins.
No.
But it certainly can help you and help those you serve and help our system in ways that you can't anticipate. So
yeah, at least we're represented. They're hearing the other side of it, the story. So you just want to be at the table, and that's what we're good at.
Okay. So I don't know if folks, what does that? I mean, I think that we tried to start at the basics, but it really is. It's the basics that really work.
It is.
Right?
It's just about getting to know them, build those relationships, and then continue to work on that. It's like any relationship, you got to work at it.
So what would you say you started? Let's just say what would be your first step?
First step, I would go and look and figure out who all my legislators are in the area. I would certainly try to invite them, and we have kind of a process where we invite them out for a breakfast. We do a tour, and it's a community tour. But I offer them, if you can spare 30 to 40 minutes, just stop by and show them what you do, get to know them, share your story. And as you said, they will respond, but also make sure you're putting yourself out there where you think they're going to be. When Chamber of Commerce invites Sherrod Brown to come speak, I'm there. And you will find me, I'll get there 25 minutes early, and I will stand at the front door, and I'll be the greeter, and I will grab him as he walks in the door with his aide. And I've learned to do that for many reasons, for donors as well as legislators. You've got to put yourself in the place where they're going to be.
You didn't greet me when I came over to visit him.
Well, you don't have that much money. But, it's one of those things. And I will tell you, and I'll be real honest about it, we probably do more fundraising than a lot of agencies. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. And it's an important thing, and especially right now, and I know this is not the political side of things, but it's an added bonus, if you will. Because right now, the trend is that giving is actually going down with smaller gifts. With the standard tax deduction now, people some of them don't have the incentive necessarily to donate and get that tax deduction. The big deal is going to be on major gifts in the future and planned gifts, I want to be, getting bequests left and right. And, and we've been working really hard on that. The people who have the capacity to do that and to do those things are the people who are going to be at these political events, and they are going to be pursuing these same people because of their own business interests or because of their own personal interests in politics. But, if you get engaged politically, you will find a secondary benefit of meeting the right people who can help you. And if you can get them to come out and take that tour, you've now built a whole other relationship for the potential for the future to secure your agency for generations to come. But there are so many things happening. I mean, we talk about, our budget proposal and what can we do to increase our rates so that we get paid enough to pay the DSPs enough to make a career out of this, to have a life, and this is such an important time for all of us to be engaged and to work together, because every one of those legislators needs to hear about that from every one of us and Opera. If they're hearing it out in the field in their home district as well as in Columbus, it's going to have much greater impact. I think it just, again, kind of adds credibility to the importance of this, and they need to hear it over and over again. It's like anything else, you don't want them to just hear it once.
That's right.
So get out there and find them, track them down. But take advantage of all those opportunities.
Don't hesitate to use us, right? We are your staff, so use us. We will help. I will help in every way we possibly can, even to get started, if you want to do that, or to complement your efforts. I have Dennis as a resource, so I know that he will be helpful and counsel in any ways that you can think of.
Certainly.
we're going to share this presentation, right? We want to have it done, and we'll piece and parse it in different ways just to continue to give people thoughts and ideas. So there's a lot to go forward on. We're looking forward to it. If folks have any, I suppose, written comments or questions, we'd love to hear them, and we'll try and tackle them. And unless they're too hard, then I'll defer to Dennis.
No, we appreciate your interest, because we're certainly glad to know that there are a lot of people out there who want to get involved, to get more engaged with their legislators, and to really, take some important actions to make sure that we can make a difference in the lives of more people in the future. I think we're done.
We are very grateful.
Great.
See you all soon.
Take care.